All right, we are back here on 99 Pod, and it's time to move on to the NFL before we come back to the NBA. We're going to make a quick stop in the NFL as we got some news over the weekend that Matthew Stafford was seeking $50 million. And after that report came out, the Rams allowed his agent to seek permission to speak to other teams. Now, the question that we have is a hypothetical Matthew Stafford trade a lose-lose situation? And Zach, I would love to
Before you go
begin here.
in, I just
Go
want to
ahead.
add one more part to this question. Do you think it's realistic too? I would like your opinion on that because I have a take on that as well.
The trade of Matthew Stafford, do I think is realistic?
Yeah. You think it's
Okay.
going to happen?
Yeah, we could get into that. Um, Look, I don't think it's gonna happen. Is it realistic? Sure. Anything after the Luka Doncic trade. And look, I understand that it's the NFL and not the NBA, but man, to me, after the Luka Doncic trade, anything is realistic. The world can end tomorrow. That's realistic to me, even more than anything. I mean, look, I do think that it's unlikely, right? And look, to me, the approach that the Rams are taking, it makes sense to me. And look, only 9 NFL quarterbacks are currently making more than $50 million per season. 7 out of the 9 are under 30 years old. And look, Matthew Stafford is 37 years old. And I understand from his perspective why he wants to maximize his career earnings on the way out, on his donkey on the way out of the NFL, right? Because everybody got a plan. Tom Brady, when he retired from Tampa, he had a contract with Fox, 10-year, what was it, like 300 million or something like that? I know it was the highest paid. That I know. Okay. And he had that waiting for him. A lot of these guys, when they retire, they got endorsement deals or they're gonna get into broadcast and they got a bag. A lot of these players, you think because they get a lot of money and they have a lot of cash flow that you think they just retire and sit out on the beach. If your name is Andrew Luck, because I don't know where Andrew Luck been these last 10 years. I mean, yo, where are you now? Andrew Luck, hit me up, bruh.
I actually
Okay.
have an answer. He just took a job as the GM of Stanford football. He's going to be working in college football, so it's good.
See, you got to hustle. You got a bag. And what Matthew Stafford wants to do is get a bag. And I can't fault him for that. I mean, look, he still got some good football. He still could sling it. If anything was indicative of where he's at in his career, he still got some ball left. The Rams, I think we forget that the Rams were a drive away from hosting an NFC championship game at home. So we forget about that. Now, I understand why the Rams, are allowing him to test the market. A lot of people is saying that how could you disrespect the guy who led you to a championship? No, they're not disrespecting him. What they're doing is saying, you know what, Stafford, if you want $50 million, see if a team will pay you that. Okay. And then we'll accommodate those demands. If a team is willing to pay you $50 million, then guess what? Go ahead, go to your team, and we will recoup the assets that we're going to recoup. And then we'll sign Aaron Rodgers, and we get a contingency plan, and we'll take the value that's going to come back. And yeah, we'll move on. But if no team wants to give up draft capital, wants to pay you on top of that, then guess what? You will see for yourself that the grass is not greener on the other side, and then you will come back to the Rams, take a pay cut, and then we'll move on. People forget that this is all a part of negotiations. Okay? Sometimes you don't have the sitting out, the requesting of the trade. Sometimes it's like, you know what? Go see your leverage, bro. It happened with Lamar. When the Ravens signed Lamar to the non-exclusive tag, it wasn't because they was going to trade Lamar. Everybody overreacted that whole entire time. It was like, no, Lamar, see if you are worth $250 million guaranteed, and then come back to me. Okay, and then we'll take care of you after that. Okay, we're not going to trade you. All right. So the same thing is happening here with Matthew Stafford. They're not going to trade Matthew Stafford unless a team is willing to give up draft capital and pay him the money he's looking for. Then we'll see a Stafford trade. But I think it's highly unlikely.
So I like the fact that you brought up that Lamar Jackson scenario, and I think it's a great comparison. And I think we have to remember, though, a big reason why Baltimore was able to get that done was because no team was willing to go above and beyond to pay Lamar Jackson. And Baltimore was able to take advantage of that. And I feel like there's a good chance, Will, that there are going to be teams that look at that situation this offseason and learn their lesson and say, you know what? The quarterback position is so important. We don't care how much we got to give up. We don't care how much money we have to pay him. And we're going to get this guy on our team. Because I'll tell you right now, the Atlanta Falcons, I like Michael Penix, and I think he has a bright future. But if they had that one back, they would definitely pay up and have Lamar Jackson on their team. And when it comes to Stafford, the report was that this negotiation that happened last offseason, not even this offseason, so last offseason, before he put together this great season that we just saw, that negotiation got pretty ugly. So I think that's where this thing started. And also, too, you know, I think the Cooper Kupp situation doesn't help these two parties' relationship either. Matthew Stafford's wife even came out on her podcast. Everyone has a podcast these days, and said she wasn't too fond of how the Rams handled that with a guy that won Super Bowl MVP just a few years ago. And I think that's a factor here as well. So, look, when it comes to the Rams, and Sean McVay has every right to feel this way, he is such a bright offensive mind, and the Rams really organizationally are so good that I feel like they're in a position where if they do come to the conclusion that, all right, like Matthew Stafford's asking for too much money and there's another team willing to give that to him, I can see them trading him because I think they have enough confidence in themselves to say, you know what, as great as Matthew Stafford was, we could find that next guy and put him in a situation to succeed. So I'm just going to call my shot right now. I do think the Rams are going to trade Matthew Stafford, and I think the Giants are going to be the team that goes all in and gets them, because this is a point I've been harping on for a while. Everyone has been linking the Giants to one of the quarterbacks in this draft, whether it's Cam Ward, whether it's Shedeur Sanders. Most people you talk to think the Giants are going to target one of those guys. But the reason why I think that logic is flawed is because the Giants regime of Joe Shane and Brian Dable are on the hottest of hot seats. They are lucky to even have jobs right now. So even if they were to draft a quarterback and that quarterback played well, if the Giants don't at least make the playoffs, it doesn't matter how good that quarterback looks, both those guys are gone. It's not likely, but the New York Giants have to have a winning, successful season this year and make the playoffs if those two guys wanted to survive. And the only way for them to do that would be to go all in irresponsibly and give up everything for Matthew Stafford. And I think that's what's going to happen here. I think the Giants are so desperate that they're going to make this move. You also hear that they just hired his brother-in-law as the team's quarterback coach to work for the team, which is a weird coincidence. I don't think that's just totally random. So I think the Giants are going to be the team that makes that move. Now, is it a lose-lose? I definitely think it's a lose scenario for Stafford. You go from the Rams to the Giants, I don't care how much more money you're making. That's not ideal. And then for the Rams, it depends what their pivot would be. There's been a lot of Aaron Rodgers talk, which I think would be interesting. I do think Rodgers could still play at this point in his career, but is he the best fit for a Sean McVay offense? I don't know. Personally, I would prefer Sam Darnold. And I know that's weird because Darnold played the Rams in the playoffs and looked totally lost. He was seeing ghosts. But I think Sean McVay could do some good things with Sam Darnold in that offense. So I think that's what I think is going to end up happening. Stafford to the Giants because they're desperate, and Darnold would be the Rams pivot.
I mean, look, if you get Sam Darnold, that's not a drop off in quarterback play. So to me, I would take that in a heartbeat if the Rams. We'll see what happens with the Vikings and if they are indeed intent on bringing back Sam Darnold in some capacity, whether it be tag or, a long-term contract or whatever. But to me, I was looking and to answer the question, it doesn't have to be a lose-lose situation. I think it could be a win-win. And I'm actually going to give you a win-win situation, right? Because I was scrolling online, just trying to, look up some stuff in regards to the legitimacy of this report. And out of all the trades that I saw, because I saw a lot of hypothetical scenarios online, there was one that stuck out, right? I can't remember the website or whatever, or who did the trade thing or whatever, so I can't really quote. But the one that I saw that made the most sense to me is you ready, Zach? An in division trade with Brock Purdy and Matthew Stafford. Because to me, unless the Rams are intending for a full rebuilding situation by trading Stafford away. Aaron Rodgers, let's say that's the most logical place or logical option right now. That's a drop off. At this stage, sure he has experience, sure you have talent, but that's a drop off. This guy cannot move. He's lame duck now, right? So that's not going to really, put you back in the driver's seat to me, right? Based on what I saw from him in New York. So if you're not trying to fully rebuild in the next couple of years, right? Because you always want to be a team that is right there, then why not reset the quarterback as far as years, not money, but years with a young buck and Brock Purdy who can keep that window of contention open. And if you're the 49ers, your window is closing. They had the opportunities at a championship and they miss. Well, guess what? If you trade for Matthew Stafford, you got another crack at it, maybe 2 cracks at it. And nobody needs a ring more than Kyle Shanahan for his legacy. So to me, I understand we don't see a lot of in-division trades. It happens, but it doesn't happen often. I think this may be the one situation where it's a win-win for every single body. If you're the 49ers, okay, you don't believe in Brock Purdy and you got to pay Brock Purdy money. Okay, then you go with Stafford, a guy who proven that he can win a championship, and then you add him with those weapons out there, and you keep that window that to me is closing open for another year or two. If you're the Rams, you get a young buck and Brock Purdy. Yeah, sure, you're gonna have to pay Brock Purdy, but your window is open for the next couple of years. So to me, that would be the alternative that I would go with.
I'll ask you that same question though, as I did off the top. Do you think that's realistic or no?
I don't think it's realistic, but I think it should happen. To me, that will be the situation that will make this a win-win. That would be the one situation at the top of the list that will make it a win-win for everybody involved.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's realistic. And look, the Niners should surely entertain it, but I just don't think the Rams would. Even if you think Brock Purdy keeps their window open, I would rather just pay Sam Darnold in that case.
I mean, just imagine that twice a year they gotta play each other. We know the history with Shanahan and McVay and how they the ultra competitive guys. But imagine a trade like that. I mean, to me, that would shake up the league. And that to me, I think both teams will win there.
What do you think about my Giants point, though? You see what I'm saying? I feel like the point on the Giants people are missing is that they have to somehow win this year or else everyone is gone. So if you're Brian Daboll and Joe Shane and you give up a first-round pick for Matthew Stafford, why do you care? There's a good chance they're going to be fired anyway by the time that pick is relevant.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point because of the desperation. That's a desperation move. Paying a quarterback, and with all due respect to not Sam Darnold, but Matthew Stafford rather, still got game, but age matters in the NFL. We know it's a grown man league and it's a young man sport. So we know that, right? Unless you think he's Tom Brady, then that's another conversation. And look, he's good. Is he a top 10 quarterback in the league still? There's a lot of talent out there. I mean, you could fit him somewhere in the top 15, maybe top 10, maybe, but he's getting older. When you're 37, man, a couple months is a difference. So do you pay him that money? Do you trade those assets? To me, that's a Hail Mary. And now you got to go to a team that will be willing and need to make that Hail Mary. And that's where the Giants come in because of Joe Sheen, who should have probably lost his job this offseason, because of Brian Daboll, who probably should have lost his job this offseason. And that's why I think, if you talk about desperation move, them and maybe Cleveland, maybe the Steelers. I think all three teams have an incentive to want to make this deal happen because all three teams need a quarterback.
Another reason why I think the Giants would be the most logical landing spot is because just look at the division they're in. You have the Philadelphia Eagles, the team that just won the Super Bowl, that 1-53 is just loaded. You have Jaden Daniels and the Washington Commanders, who just went to the NFC Championship game, and their roster is definitely going to get better. And then you have the Dallas Cowboys, who I understand the Brian Schottenheimer hire was not ideal, but they've dominated the Giants in the last 10 years, and their roster is still a lot more talented than theirs. So Giants just need to find a way to stay relevant within their own division. I think this move would be the only way for them to do that. When it comes to Cleveland, I mean, I just think they're going in the opposite direction. This is a move maybe they would have made, 2-3 years ago when they traded for Deshaun Watson, but they already made their big trade at the quarterback position. That failed. And then the Steelers, I mean, They should go after him, but it's the Steelers. We know that's not a move that's usually in their repertoire.
Yeah, I mean they did it last year because they, it was cheap. I mean, this is not cheap here. That's a difference. Russell Wilson signed a $1 million deal because he was getting paid by Denver, and Justin Fields, I think it was a six round pick or something like that. All right, we'll just shoot that over. Those don't mean as much as first and second and thirds. And because it was so cheap that they needed to do it. It was right there for them to do it. This one is not. You're paying a 37-year-old quarterback $50 million, which is almost top value, and you have to trade who knows what the package is, to get him. So it's going to be tougher to make that happen for the Steelers. I like my trade, and I think yours will come in second for me.
Let me throw one more team out there, and I actually just thought of this, but I think it's interesting. So I know I mentioned Sam Darnold as a possible option for the Rams if they do decide to move on from Stafford. The thing is, though, if I'm the Vikings, I would not feel 100% confident in just going into next season with J.J. McCarthy as my starter. I know they have a lot of talent on offense. I know Kevin O'Connell just won Coach of the Year, but I feel like you would be putting J.J. McCarthy in the position to fail if you just bring him back and hope that he could match what Sam Darnold did last season. Just because I know things flamed out for the Vikings in the playoffs, but they were a great regular season team. And up until that last game of the season, they were looking like a legitimate title contender. If you're the Vikings and you have some hesitations about paying Sam Darnold, which I get, he had one good year, but I feel like you just cannot go into next season with McCarthy as your starter and just put everything on his shoulders. Could that be a possible option for Stafford and him going to Minnesota? If you put Matthew Stafford on the Vikings, are they a championship contender? Because I think they might be.
I mean, yeah, I think that would definitely make them a championship contender. Matthew Stafford is a little bit more poised than Sam Darnold. We saw it in the playoff meeting against each other. One quarterback immediately. I mean, look at the first drive. Matthew Stafford led the team down to score a touchdown. And then with Sam Darnold, he looked like he saw a ghost out there. That's because of veteranship, experience, being there before, winning a championship. So you bring that to your team to go along with Justin Jefferson and all that talent and that good coaching that they have over there. Yeah, they should be a championship contender. It was a contender a little bit, maybe flawed with Sam. So of course they're going to be a contender with Matthew Stafford. And if they're able to pull that off, then that's something they look into. Now, to your point about going back into the year with JJ only on the roster, I do agree that having that expectations that he's going to have to deal with, knowing that Sam Darnold had a very good year and now he's gone and now we're giving you the key. So now there's a level of like day one, you got to show up and be that guy who we invested in. Then, yeah, that's a lot of pressure for a quarterback. Maybe you do want to bring in some, quarterback stability, maybe another body there to kind of like, have a competition, but it all depends on finances because if you're trading for a quarterback, there's no competition. That's your guy. If you franchise tagging Sam Darnold with the amount that the franchise tag has, then there's no competition. It would be like Daniel Jones. Okay, yeah, competition. So we'll see how the Vikings play that out, and we'll see how the Rams play that out as well.
Especially with McCarthy coming off 2 surgeries this offseason. And I also think, Will, you've been the guy of everyone I know, you've been a guy that has been really pushing the narrative of quarterbacks play and get thrown into the fire too quickly after they're drafted. And you've listed many quarterbacks throughout the years that you think could have been maybe better and could have had a better career if that situation was handled differently. I think this is the epitome of a situation like that where I'm not giving up on JJ McCarthy. I think he could be a very successful NFL quarterback one day. I just feel like we just don't know because at Michigan, he wasn't asked to do a whole lot because he had an all-star team around him. Coming off of these injuries, given the situation that the Vikings are in, they're a win-now team. After the year they just had, they're going to go into this season with massive expectations, no matter who their quarterback is, considering they have the coach of the year and a good defense on their side as well. They bring back Brian Flores. He didn't get a head coaching job, so that's key. Like, the more I think about it, if Stafford wants to leave LA and come out a winner, that would be the best place for him to go.
Let me ask you this, and this is my last point. What about Aaron Rodgers and how he fits into this discussion, right? Rams Vikings. Obviously, the Vikings is a potential opportunity if Stafford gets traded. But even the Vikings could be one because you mentioned you want that quarterback to just be a placeholder, kind of, for JJ to have another extra year to recalibrate and learn. Rodgers could be a potential opportunity, taking another page out of Brett Favre, basically following his whole career. That will be, and you got the Rams as well. That could be a potential option. Where does Aaron Rodgers fit in this conversation, if at all?
It's a good question. The one thing I'll say about Rodgers is I think he needs to go to a team that already has an established head coach and an established culture. I think that's one thing that really hurt him with the Jets is given what he accomplished in Green Bay, as soon as he walked into the Jets building, it's almost like the Jets didn't know how to react because they never had someone as successful as Aaron Rodgers in that facility. And he walked all over Robert Saleh. The Jets didn't have an alpha personality to deal with him. And I feel like if he goes to a team like Minnesota or a team like the Rams, it would make some sense from that aspect in the sense that they have good, proven, established head coaches, good, proven, established culture. And that would be a place I think where he could succeed. I like the Rams fit a little bit better just because I think their offensive line is better. You're going to need to be able to protect him. And, obviously Minnesota's a dome. And I know both these guys, Rodgers and Stafford, played in the NFC North for years. But I just feel like Rodgers playing in Arizona, Rodgers playing in San Francisco, in Seattle, which, the weather could be up and down there multiple times a year. I just think that would be a little bit more favorable and ideal opposed to playing in the NFC North in Lambeau Field, playing in Chicago in the cold weather. But that would be crazy if he literally just follows Brett Favre's same exact career path and goes to Minnesota. I haven't even thought of that. But
and he has experience in that division, the NFC North.
And so does Stafford.
Yep. Exactly. So
what do you think about it? Where do you think Rodgers is going to be playing next year? Because I was thinking the Raiders were the best fit because they have an established head coach in Pete Carroll. But if you want to win, that division is loaded. So I don't really know if that would be the best place either.
To me, the Steelers is, I think the Giants, that's my prediction. I don't think the Giants are going to swing. Now, you made very good points on why they should in the desperation. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to play it safe and sign a guy like Aaron Rodgers and try to get their quarterback of the future. Because even if you swing for Stafford, he's probably only going to play 2 more years. I'll give him 2 more years that he's going to play. I don't think he's playing past 40. This guy has so much injuries. We forget. This guy has so much injuries throughout his career in Detroit, especially in Detroit. This guy used to be known as an injury-prone player. I don't think he's going to play. We forget that. I don't think he's going to play deep into his 40s. I think he's probably going to give a team 2 more years. Well, if that's the case, the Giants ain't winning no championship. Even with him, they don't got the components to win a championship. So why would you make that move? To me, you go after Rodgers because he's going to be a placeholder for the guy that's going to be the quarterback of your team in the future.
I just feel like if Rodgers comes in, though, and you draft a quarterback, and let's just say he has an up and down first 4 or 5 games, and they start like even 2 and 3, everyone's going to be telling you it's time for the youngster to play. And I just feel like the Giants and their regime knows we have to go in and win this year or else we're gone. And maybe they think Rodgers could do that, but we're on the same page in the sense that Stafford would give them a better chance. And I think that's why he would be the more logical option for them.
All right. We'll see what happens with the Rams and Matthew Stafford. Maybe it's just smoke and mirrors, or maybe something legitimate there. Where there's smoke, there's fire. We'll see what happens and where these fellas go from there.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.